Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello and a good morning at you. It's a Friday. It's sunny. It's October 19th. And I got somebody here with me. Might have seen this guy before, Bill O Driscoll of City Paper. And we're going to start you out, get you a little wet right off the bat.
Oh, wet. Gee, what kind of show is this, Lynn?
Well, I'm sorry. I don't understand. Yeah. I mean, it's one of my favorite topics, and I find that this usually, well, you find out who the serious people are when you bring this up, you know? The ones that go running for the door, well, obviously, these are not serious people. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've finished your post-toasties because we are talking sewage. Yes, we're talking sewage. Sewers.
Getting dirty.
We're talking about infrastructure.
It's very exciting infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When you always talk about the crumbling infrastructure of the country, and I mean that is true. And a lot of that infrastructure is infrastructure we see. You can see bridges crumbling. You can see roads crumbling, but underneath your feet, there's a whole other world, and that stuff is really crumbling often. In all these older cities, I mean, in all cities around the country.
Sure.
The same issue, right?
Hundreds of them, yeah.
And this is the kind of thing, guess what? Guess what is needed to pay for upgrades and upkeep of infrastructure?
Money.
That's correct, but I was thinking actually, that's absolutely right. But I was thinking of one little, actually just a 3-letter word. Well, 5 if you pluralize it.
Taxes?
That's right! You have to have money coming in from people in a community so that you can, and because ever since it seems to me that we've gotten on this no taxes kick.
Although in the case of sewage, that doesn't quite apply as things are set up, because ALCOSAN, who we're going to be talking about, the folks who run the sewage system, don't get any tax money.
Where the hell does their money come from? No.
Us. Well, taxes come from us too. Rates. Your sewage bill.
It's purely rates.
It all comes from the sewage bill. That's the only money they get.
Well, hang on to your checkbook, guys, because your sewage bill is going to be going sky high.
It could, yes.
It's already pretty high. So it could double, triple.
Well, here's the thing. ALCOSAN, like many other sewage authorities in older cities, we have this problem where our raw sewage goes into the river during rainstorms, right? Because the sewer systems just get overwhelmed without getting too technical about it. And if you're a person who uses the river, if you kayak down there, if you fish, even if you hike along the river, you might have seen these things that are called.
You might have seen what?
Well,
you might have seen
these giant metal gates, these big metal doors on the big ALCOSAN pipes. They're called combined sewer outfalls.
Yeah, you also might see, poop floating by.
If you
just said that, I mean, what?
If you're out there when it rains.
I'm out for a lovely day kayaking on the.
Hey, you said the P word
river.
First on the air, Lynn. It wasn't me.
You say it. The poop goes right into the river. Meanwhile, we're trying to sell this place as recreational. 3 lovely rivers. Disregard the poop floating around.
Well, it only happens if you're only going to see that if you're out using the river when it's rainy or in wet weather, typically, But it doesn't take much rain for this to happen, because you think about all the, ALCOSAN covers about 300 square miles of land.
It's all it's ALCOSAN is Allegheny County.
Essentially, yeah. There's some areas outside that it also covers, but it think about how much of that is paved. Roads, parking lots, houses, the tops of houses. That's essentially paving the ground. All that stormwater just runs right off, runs right into the sewer.
Whereas if it were like rural, it would sink into the
forest or meadows or even farmland to some extent. Most of that stuff. Now, some of it, like your lawns and stuff, better than pavement, but still there's runoff from lawns too.
Yeah,
because they can't soak everything up.
Okay, so we took Paradise and we put up a parking lot and roads, and now when it rains hard, that water runs off, mixes with
stuff from your toilet. Yeah. So anyway, a lot of people know this. It's been talked about for years. The thing is that's happening now is in Pittsburgh is the EPA the U.S. EPA says you can't keep doing this. You can't keep letting poop go into the rivers, basically, to ALCOSAN. So they have a consent decree with ALCOSAN where ALCOSAN has to go and fix this problem to figure out a way to greatly reduce these combined sewer overflows.
I got an idea.
The old sewers, yeah.
We could constipate the entire population.
Oh.
Well, that would keep poop from going into the system.
Just have people
have less poop.
People eat a lot of cheese, less fiber.
I don't know. Fiber.
Just
put a tax on fiber. Okay, I'll stop. You go right now. I'll stop. This is really a serious issue, and no one wants. I mean, I'm being obnoxious because this is the kind of thing that people don't. Want to talk about.
You don't want to talk about it, but it's huge because ALCOSAN's plan for fixing this, their initial plan was a $3.6 billion infrastructure plan. $3.6 billion.
So if it's ALCOSAN, and you had already told us that they get that the only money they get is from us,
our sewage bills.
And you're saying, Billy, what is it? 3.6. That's $3.6 billion that we will have to pay.
That was the plan that would totally satisfy the EPA. There's a plan about half that size that ALCOSAN wants the EPA to approve. They have to submit this plan to the EPA in January. The EPA may or may not approve that, but even so, even the smaller plan is still $2 billion and would probably double your sewage bill. Okay. Now, if you live in the city of Pittsburgh, your sewage bill comes with your and I'll explain this.
This is why I get so mixed up.
You asked this earlier.
It comes with my water,
right.
Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority bill. They now come together.
And the way this works is if you live in Pittsburgh or any other municipality, your municipality owns the sewage system there, and that all feeds into ALCOSAN's bigger system. Okay. It all goes out to those pipes, and then it goes to be treated at their plant a little bit down the Ohio River from the point.
So wait a minute.
Runs
so
downhill.
You mean like a little, all these stupid little towns? Excuse me if you live in one of them. Like Killbuck Township, which appears to be 400 feet from what I can tell. I mean, it's just like nothing. Killbuck and these little towns up there. Each one of those places has a sewage. Some of them have like 800 people in
They have their own. I don't know about Killbuck specifically, but no matter how small the town in Allegheny County, it has its own sewage authority. And this is one of the solutions to jump ahead of myself a little bit to this problem is to consolidate these things. And for efficiency, just like towns have done with, fire, police, other kinds of, public services.
Well, of course. But there's no... is there any political will to do it?
There hasn't been a big move up till now, although some people think that, a lot of towns have a lot invested in their identity with, like, we have our own police force, our own 3 cops or whatever. But the thinking is that possibly they're not as invested in their identity of their sewage system.
This is my point. Yeah,
right,
nobody wants to get into sewage.
This one guy, there's something called Three Rivers Wet Weather, which is a nonprofit that works to deal with some of these issues, to try to alleviate some of them. And the guy who runs that, a great guy named John Schombert, said, probably if they're educated a little bit, most people who run these little towns, municipal officials, are going to say, yeah, you can have my sewer system. We really don't want to deal with it. It's a big headache. It's a lot of upkeep. It's a lot of concrete that we have to worry about every year. And it's really inefficient for each of these little towns to keep their own.
I would imagine. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so to make the feds happy, we've got to have this plan. The plan has been proposed, and my understanding is a lot of opposition to this plan by ALCOSAN to get the sewage out of the rivers is because it is a plan that they could have come up with in 1940. I mean,
right? Yes, right.
It's not making use of any of new technologies and ideas about how you can do this in a.
Well, yeah, the new technology is really the old technology, which
the
is,
greener way.
As you say, so what ALCOSAN's plan is basically to build more big pipes and build bigger treatment plants. Mm-hmm. So they have these underground tunnels that now accept our sewage, and you know. They go under. Some of them go across the river. Some of them are underground on the banks of the river. But they're these big tunnels, encased concrete tunnels. They just want to build more and bigger of those, bury them under the existing ones, and build bigger treatment plants. So that would give a place for the stormwater when it comes. You know, it can be like hundreds of millions of gallons of water can inundate these tunnels at once. They need some place to store that water until they can treat it and eventually just pump it up, siphon it off, treat it slowly, even though it comes all at once and when there's a big rainstorm. What critics are saying is this is, as you just said, a plan you could have come up with 60 years ago. It's basically more of the same kind of plan. It doesn't do anything to relieve the stormwater coming into the system. It's just coping with it after it's already happened. Critics are saying, these folks with groups like Clean Water Action, the Clean Rivers Campaign, environmentally minded groups like that are saying, why don't we use what Mother Nature gave us, which is letting water soak into the ground, basically. And essentially, there's lots of different ways to do that, using things like permeable pavement is one. It's a kind of asphalt where the water just seeps right in instead of running right off. That's kind of a newer thing. Some of the other things are just like, they call them swales, which is like a constructed area where the water, you know, has a place to pool until it can just soak naturally into the ground. Trees are great. Planting more trees would be a great strategy because trees sequester all this rainwater. They suck it up through their roots. Like a mature tree can hold like hundreds of gallons of water, believe it or not.
Okay, so clearly a tree and is a better idea in many ways. It's less expensive. It's environmental. It really works than having to dig and concrete and pipes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, a combination of the two is what's required.
Right. And the other point is other cities are already doing this. Like Philadelphia, for instance, they also had to have a stormwater remediation plan, a wet weather plan. And their plan is almost all green. It's like 80% green infrastructure.
But they differ from us in that they already have like some measure of consolidation that we don't have. Or the city owns. The city actually... There's something.
Philadelphia City is basically the same as the water authority there. So their sewage authority and the city are one and the same. They can basically mandate this stuff.
Okay.
Whereas ALCOSAN can't say to Millvale or Etna or, you know,
well, that's
Homestead.
A big difference.
Right, sure. It is a big difference. It is and this is what ALCOSAN says. We can't do this on our own.
Well, so, okay, I know, but other cities are doing this kind of thing. Milwaukee, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So out we come, and it's the same old, which is driving some people nuts.
Yes. And there is a chance, by the way, if you're interested in this issue.
Not much of one anymore.
Yeah. The public comment period actually ends today.
It's going on until 5 today.
Oh, 5 today at ALCOSAN's plant down in the Ohio. Actually, you probably should visit it if you've never visited that plant. They give tours of it and everything. You can see, you know, where the downhill is from where your house is and where they treat all this stuff that comes out of our buildings. So until 5 today, you can still go down and give your 2 cents. You can do it online, too. You can submit the comments in writing. I wrote about it.
Does that really make any difference? I'm asking you.
Well,
I go home and write a screed, about what I think and fire it off to ALCOSAN. Is anybody going to read it?
They're supposed to read it. ALCOSAN has pretty much said they have to submit this plan to the EPA by January. Odds are they're not really going to change their plan, but they have to submit all the comments to EPA. And if EPA sees enough of these comments, maybe they'll try to convince ALCOSAN to do a little bit more of this green infrastructure to sort of push for it. Now, I should say in ALCOSAN's defense, they are doing, to the extent that they can, they have been doing some pretty green things so far that they haven't gotten much attention. For instance, There's years ago when a lot of open area like forest land or whatever in Allegheny County was being initially paved for development, for housing, whatever, they would take these streams that were quote unquote in the way. We want to pave this land. We have these streams, they're in the way, this land can't be wet. So they would put the streams into pipes, and everybody's seen this little culverts that come out that streams are guided into and so forth. And what they did in their not very wise fashion some years ago was they piped these streams straight into the sewer tunnels. So this is an additional burden of however many hundreds of millions of gallons of just stream water every year that ALCOSAN winds up processing for no good reason. They don't have to. It's not sewage water. There's nothing dirty about it. But ALCOSAN now has been going back to try to remediate that and actually daylighting these sewers. They take them out of the pipes and they let them resume their natural course. They've done this to several streams in the county now, and it's saved, 600 and some million gallons a year.
Now, remind me, but it seems to me whenever I have read things about ALCOSAN in the past, ALCOSAN has been a troubled agency or authority. I mean, does it even have somebody in charge now? It seems to me they've gone through. There's just been a lot of trouble up there. I always get when you say ALCOSAN, I always get the sense of an unruddered, a rudderless ship.
I don't know too much about the politics of it, to tell you the truth. I mean, but obviously they have a very big task that, again, as you say, most people don't want to think about. It probably doesn't really get the attention that it warrants.
And how political does this end up being? As opposed to practical, how political?
Well, I think, a lot of these sort of pragmatic barriers are they're real like engineering issues. I mean, even if I can't answer that question in terms of the politics. I did talk to the county executive, Rich Fitzgerald, about this, and he's in favor of there being more green infrastructure in this plan. He's spoken publicly about that.
Right.
He thinks there should be more. But again, he can't individually go to these financially strapped little towns along the Allegheny River and say, you guys have to do this. There has to be some kind of resources for them to do it. They have to, again, they're all maintaining their own fire departments and their own police and all these other things. Their own roads.
That is idiotic.
Yeah. Well, so that's the situation we find ourselves in. Yeah.
Again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Okay. So, your last chance. You got till 5 to what? It seems like we're closing the door after the barn door after everybody's gotten out.
There is another way that you could comment on this, actually, and I should say too that there are, so at the level of individual municipalities, they do have the authority, based on their public land, their laws and rules about how you do development in your municipality. They can implement this green infrastructure to try to reduce the amount of stormwater that actually goes into the system ultimately. And Pittsburgh's already done some of this. For instance, publicly funded developments in Pittsburgh have to do some kind of green infrastructure now to prevent stormwater runoff or to lessen it.
I know that I just got something from my synagogue the other day that they're building a rain garden.
Yeah.
And people are, so individuals and groups are trying to do their part.
Yeah, which is terrific. Rain gardens, green roofs, people may have heard of that, where you actually plant like a lawn or some kind of garden on the roof of the building to prevent the stormwater from leaving the roof and going into the system. So, yeah, there's been a lot, and people do rain barrels, people do some of this stuff.
Seeing a lot more of that.
And that's all great. But, we also know that most people aren't going to do that stuff unless they really have to, because there's no downside for them not doing it. You know what I mean?
Right, but there could be. This is where government could give incentives to people who do that kind of thing.
And again, to use the example of Philadelphia, they've actually started charging landowners for their stormwater runoff. Mount Lebanon does this also, actually. But both of those municipalities, and I'm sure other ones around the country, say we're gonna charge you a fee for the stormwater that runs off your land. But if you want to fix that problem, if you want to do a rain garden or a green roof to alleviate that, we will give you a tax credit.
There you go.
For that money. So it's not
carrot and stick approach.
Carrot and stick approach, right?
I like that idea.
And so there's another deadline that comes up with this. Municipalities, including Pittsburgh, have until July to submit their own stormwater mitigation programs to the State Department of Environmental Protection and Allegheny County. So you can go pressure your own municipality to say, hey, why aren't we doing some of these things to try to keep stormwater out of that system? Because there's other benefits to it, too. It's not just keeping stormwater out of the system. It's making your area greener. It's probably cleaning the air. It looks nicer. than just building more storm sewers.
Absolutely. And just so you know, no matter where you live, if you're in one of those little towns, if you're in the city, there's a bill coming due, and there ain't no getting away from it, and it's going to be eye-popping.
Yeah, it could. So
individually, each home is going to start seeing
increases.
The cost of this.
Yep, it could. And right now, I think the average is somewhere a little south of $300 a year for the stormwater, and that could double under even the cheaper ALCOSAN program, the less expensive proposal that they have. Under the larger one, it would more like triple. So yeah, it's not cheap to do this stuff and to try to and
it has to be done. And so I'm just saying, the bill is coming. It's in the mail. Very slow mail, but it's coming. Right. And all you little bailiwicks, wise up, will you? God dang. Stupid. Jeez. It's so, you can have about 100 people strutting around as police chief. I'm the police chief. I'm the fire chief. That's what it's all about.
I'm the chairman of the municipal sewage board.
That's right. I am somebody. God. I am Lower Slavovia's, director. God, idiot. Ego. Stupid man ego. Male ego. That's all. And you know what? You pay. You pay. I'm in a mood today, can you tell? Sorry. Well, I thank you. Anyway, Bill's written about this in the current edition of City Paper.
Yes.
I'm glad someone can get their head around all this kind of stuff, and you're the guy.
I'm one of them.
Well, yeah, but you are. I mean, you understand this stuff. And again, it's, you talk about sewage, pipes. They even call the solution all gray. I mean, it's not sexy marketing. It's not like no one's drawn to this.
Yeah, nobody wants to think about it. We just want to flush the toilet.
We want it to work.
And be done.
Well, remember those days when you just had an outhouse in the back? Remember those good old days?
I don't, actually.
No, I don't either. Life was so much simpler.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to remember, too, that the sewage treatment apparatus is, in the really old days, even, 150 years ago, it was just open sewage in the street.
Yeah, just went right. I know.
And people just dumped their slop buckets out in the street.
That
wasn't so good either, that
I suspect that was, no.
Cholera and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of a downside to it. So it's when you have, hundreds of thousands of people living in a small area, you kind of need some of these solutions.
Communal solutions. Which, of course, is getting a little close to communism.
That's right.
These are the kinds, we're all in this together. And it requires a communal solution. And that just doesn't sit well with Americans because, we're individualists.
Even when it comes to
That's right. Well, I think this is part of the problem that we just don't, whatever.
Why can't I own my own sewage plant?
Yeah, right.
Every sewage,
a sewage plant in every pot. I mean,
no, you've gone too far. Now you've gone too far.
Okay, we'll stop. Oh man, God, Bill, thank you.
You're welcome,
and thank you for putting up with me. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, unfortunately, he'll be gone. I'll still be here. That's just the way it's going to work. You have a good weekend.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
In a world where the GOP presidential campaign was mind-numbingly long,
on next election day, you can say no to hope and change and choose a better way.
And the president revealed his true intentions.
If I tax each rich man, oh Solyndra, I could lend you all the cash.
Isn't it nice to know that you can laugh at all of them? Come see the Capitol Steps.
November 4th at the Byham Theater. Tickets on sale at trustarts.org and 412-456-6666.
Oh, hey, it's coming to an end soon. We got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's all that's left of Real Q, the, Pittsburgh International Lesbian and Gay Film Festival. Geez, I wish I had. I don't have my schedule. I could tell you what's coming up today, but some blockbuster stuff to end with a bang on tonight and Saturday, and all of the screenings, of course, at the Harris Theater downtown in the Cultural District. Please take advantage of this. I don't know. You got something to do tonight? It's Friday night. Got something to do Saturday night? I'm giving you a really good suggestion. Harris Theater, Real Q. And then it'll be gone by Sunday. If you want more information, including that schedule of when, where, and what's showing, please just log on to realq.org. That's REEL.org.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Science Center, History Museum, Carnegie Museums, and the top Halloween attractions in Pittsburgh. This week, get discounts on the Scare House, Terror Town, and Pittsburgh Opera's Don Giovanni. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's e-commerce mall. Bergbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay, I'm sorry. I generally am apologizing for my state. Colette writes, Lynn, the real problem is that for years ALCOSAN had a note on their sewage bills. They were quarterly then, saying something to the effect, no rate increase for more than 10 years. If they had been modestly increasing rates and investing the extra money for infrastructure improvements all along, we wouldn't have this problem. It's not like we didn't have problems with overflow 30 years ago. Yeah, you wonder why would ALCOSAN even bother touting no rate increase for more than 10 years? Like, what? What are we going to do? Vote them out of office? I mean, ALCOSAN is not, it could do whatever it damn well pleases. I mean, why didn't they nudge it up? Well, because we're in this new mindset, thank you, Republicans, where we take umbrage at being asked to contribute a dime to any more of this stuff that's not going to directly help me and not help my neighbor. Why should I help him? Sickening. Okay, look at this full-page ad in the Post-Gazette today by Fox News. I gotta bet if they put this in the Pittsburgh paper, then they put this in newspapers all over the country. Death and deceit in Benghazi. And it's just flat out going after Obama, politicizing, and I'm really blown away by this. Unraveling the whole story with details never heard before. That's tonight on Fox at 10. This is the death of 4 people in Benghazi has been exploited in a shameless manner by Republicans. And, of course, this is their main outlet. They've got many. So I was blown away by that. Also, I was blown away by a little story that in the paper that Bill Clinton and George W. Bush were both at the Byham Theater last night. Yes, he just says, what? Now that's, those are the 2 former presidents. And it was hush-hush. They and about 100 or 100 and some other people were at the Byham Theater. And it's unclear, and this was at the behest or under the banner of UBS. Do you ever get the sense that we're only pawns in their game? I mean, here you have a former Democratic president, a former Republican president, and they somehow come together at an event, private, secretive, nobody's talking. Last night, it says that all they left behind was a trail of rumors about what's going on. What happened at the Byam Theater last night? Nobody knows, and nobody there's talking. But a big, huge corporation like UBS, that's financial services firm, is behind it. So when people start, these conspiracy types start saying, these financial interests in cahoots with governments are running, yeah. You get the impression there's some truth in that. Who were these people? The gathering drew hundreds of guests to the Byam. UPS was mum about the event, but word got around downtown last night. There was lots of whispering. George W. and Bill Clinton are in there, along with some, stuffed suits. I bet about probably just a bunch of white men, right? What do you think? What are the odds that it was just total white guys sitting around who know more than we know, who aren't sharing what they know? I don't know. What the hell is that about? And here's all our local media is able to say. Shortly after the event let out, 2 groups of unmarked cars, escorted by a state police cruiser, were seen heading down Fort Duquesne Boulevard. Representatives for UPS corporate headquarters in New York did not return phone calls or emails seeking comment. I mean, it's just an absolute... I don't know about you. I just don't like it. I don't like that kind of a thing. Bill Clinton, and this is telling too. Bill Clinton was here earlier in the day. He spoke to these, the young world leaders that are in town, the one young world delegates. And then he went over and did this secret little conclave with another ex-president and a bunch of white guys in suits. And none of us are privy to what happened. George W. Bush was in town before the Byam event, and what did he do? He didn't talk to any potential world leaders. He played golf at Oakmont, which is classic. I mean, it's classic, the two of them, right? Clinton, playing an audience and engaged in, this wonkish talk, and W playing golf, but they both ended up in the same place, over there at the Byam Theater. And you and I need not know what was going on. Wow. I don't know. So anyway, let me do this. We have a guest coming in, author Kathleen George, whose work I have been loving for years and years and years now, and whose most recent book, Simple, is my favorite so far, is coming in, and we're going to talk about this and about writing these kinds of, I think they're called police procedurals, huh? It's a mystery. It's a type of mystery. And it's just fascinating. They're all set right here in Pittsburgh. Simple, the most recent one. And we'll be back with Kathleen George after this.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Pittsburgh City Paper's Best of Pittsburgh 2012 is available now. Over 100 pages of the best restaurants, clubs, bands, bars, and everything else that makes the Burgh the city of champions. Pittsburgh City Paper Best of Pittsburgh 2012, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okay, here's Kathleen George. As promised, here she is. Get a little closer to me, Kathleen.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Sorry. We've got to get another chair. Look at. This is ridiculous.
I've never been short.
No, I know you're not a short one. Well, here, I'll get. We've got. Okay, I can drop mine. That's what I'll do. There. Now our mics are too high. Okay, well, all right. Do you feel like Edith Ann? Do you know that? Remember Lily Tomlin?
I do, yes. She was so funny.
Yeah. Well, Kathleen George is, among other things, an author. She is, among other things, a professor at the University of Pittsburgh and professor of theater. I always want to say you're a professor of writing, but...
Well, I am a little bit now.
Okay.
I have a secondary appointment in the English department.
As well you should.
Thank you.
You know... Okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
Do we look silly or now we look normal?
You look good.
We do?
Yeah, you look fine.
We just feel like we're sitting on the floor. Okay. And I have told the audience that I've read all your books, and I think this is my favorite.
That's really nice to hear.
Simple. It's simply my favorite.
Thank you.
And I've loved them all. But you are, as you said, I mean, when you walked in, you'll have to remind me of what, because you wrote this when? Like a year and a half or 2 years ago?
No, more like three to 4 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it takes such a long time in the process, before the book comes out. And so...
You can barely remember. This is like, what?
I remember it, but, I can forget a character's name at this point. I've had so many. I mean, I have about 100 characters in each book, and I'll think, wait a minute, what did I name her?
But you have, like so many mystery writers do, you have a core cast of characters that if you've read all your books, you keep reacquainting yourself with these people.
The core is mainly detectives Christie and Dolan, who started out in the first two books, and then I introduced Colleen Greer and John Pataki in the third book.
Those both detectives as well?
Yes, and they're all part of the squad. And then there are some of the more minor detectives who Christie might worry about how they do the case, and that happens in Simple for sure.
Okay. You obviously have become pretty smart about how cops work. Mm-hmm. And you've had to be schooled in that, right?
Yes, I made a lot of phone calls.
Do you know if many of the Pittsburgh police read your books?
I don't know. I had a detective come to my book launch for Simple, and she had discovered my website and my tour and all of that kind of thing. But she came excited, but partly because she read recipes on my tour and bits of things that I'd written about stuffed zucchini, stuffed with rice and lamb, and that was in her family. And so she said, "I knew I wanted to meet you." So I hope she likes the work. I haven't heard from her again.
Well,
yes, we can hope.
So, how come all of your books have a one-word title? Who decides that?
Oh, that's become so fashionable, and it started out with the first book, which I had titled Pirate's Child, thinking that was a good title because of the theme of the Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher and the baby stolen, and all the emotional piracy that was going on in that book. And at that time, the editor at Bantam said, "Oh, no, my dear, we need to have a different title. People will think this is about
pirates."
Ships.
Yeah,
and
pirates.
I said, "Even with a noir cover?" And she said, "Oh, yes, they don't know the difference." I kind of disagree there. So
the contempt for all of us by these higher-ups is unbelievable.
So I had to come up with another title, and my agent said something about liking verbs, and she thought that I used a lot of verbs, and she thought that was really good. So we were just on the phone. You have to use a verb every once in a while.
I would think a verb might be sort of necessary in a sentence.
So I said, how about something with taken in it? And she said, just taken.
Taken.
And so there we have it. It's a very good word. More entries in the OED than any other word. It has so many meanings. But sure enough, a lot of other authors thought it was very good too. Because
so there's a number of books titled.
A number of books, yes.
Titled Taken.
And movies.
And then so you go from Taken to
Fallen
to, here's one that got a little, instead of odds, you had to say the odds.
I know. After Image was next.
After Image, okay, then Hideout. Mm-hmm. And Simple.
Yeah, I decided to go for an adjective.
And I don't understand why simple. Okay, you went on to the adjectives. What's simple about this book?
Well, hopefully nothing.
No.
Yeah, that was the idea. It seems simple. The case seems simple at first.
Yes.
And
it's not.
And it's not.
Okay. Mystery writers, mystery as a genre, has so many subgenres, it seems to me. For instance, I realize as I'm reading your work that I know who done it. I mean, I know who done it.
Right.
You quite clearly let us in on who done it. And so that's not what this is. It's not a who done it. It's watching the police figure out who done it.
Exactly.
So that's called what? A police procedural?
It is, and not all police procedurals let you in on the life of the criminal. Some of them keep the mystery going. But my training, I would say, is mainly from directing plays and directing Shakespeare, and he lets you see all of the characters. He lets you see the villains and how bitter they are, and the heroes, and how puzzled they are, and then you get to put it all together, and when it's right, you're seeing connections and similarities between the heroes and the villains, and
it fleshes out all the characters more too. You have an idea of motivation, and
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And I'm interested in kind of, I don't know, thematic things that might tie those different characters together. So I'm very aware of doing that. And I've had a lot of people who like it, but every once in a while somebody will say, I knew who did it. That's not a mystery. Well, it's one kind of a mystery.
Mm-hmm. And I like this. Another reason why I think I like this? This one is not as bloody as some of you've written some really violent books.
Some of those characters just do
some
really bad things.
Really bad people. I mean, it's very violent. I want to say, seems to me the only blood in this book, it's just a drop of blood, and it's the blood in a mosquito.
I know.
That is so odd. It's a mosquito, a dead mosquito, that leads or that confirms the kill. Stop and think about that. That's a brilliant idea. Are you aware that ever happened in a case?
No.
Figuring out who the mosquito... Okay, let's look at the blood in that mosquito, and it'll tell us who was there.
I don't know that it ever happened in a case, but the idea was sort of pressed on me by a detective who said, I have a wonderful idea. And I said, sorry, I can't use it. It doesn't fit my book. And the more I thought about it, the more it began to fit the book. And I incorporated it as the key element in this. But at first, it didn't make sense to me. But he said it could happen.
It could happen.
It could happen.
That a dead mosquito found at the scene of the murder that obviously had a last meal.
And was the best little witness.
The only real witness. The only one.
Right.
Then you all you had to do was find somebody with a mosquito bite, and if their DNA it was just brilliant.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm now very happy with the idea, but it was. I love things that make me wrestle, and that happens often with research. I'll be doing research, and it wasn't what I had in mind, and then it starts to be much more exciting than what I had in mind. So that's a good part of it.
Another thing that you do in your books often is you take us inside the police department and into the cops' lives and how they work and the toll it takes on them. But you also seem to like to get into the political realm and politicians.
I haven't before this, but boy,
I thought there was another. Wasn't there in the one where there was started with a horrible bloody hostage hostage situation in a bank? Seems to me there was someone running for office in that one. Come on.
I don't know that book.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
There was never. Okay, this is serious. Excuse us for just a moment.
A bank scene. I can't come up with a bank scene.
You never had a hostage? Well, who the hell wrote that book?
I don't know.
Oh, Fever Dream? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, maybe.
Dennis
And who was
Palumbo.
that?
Dennis Palumbo.
Dennis Palumbo. Do you know him?
No, and I haven't read him yet, but it's on my list. I will.
Oh, no! So I mixed Dennis Palumbo up with you. He sets whodunits in Pittsburgh. Okay. And he had an ugly bank hostage situation over here that did involve politicians as well. Dirty politicians. And you got some...
It's the year for that.
Yeah. So you've got...
Thinking about politicians.
This has to do with a Pennsylvania statewide gubernatorial campaign or would-be campaign. And this was a nice guy, this politician.
Yeah. Flawed, but very nice.
A nice man.
A decent guy.
And I love this one. I'm going to share. So the cops, the detectives, are trying to figure this guy out because a lot of people seem to think that he's the one who had the motive, right, to kill there's a girl dead, right. He's the one who had the motive. And I love this bringing in of real politics.
The news.
The news.
It got to me. I'll tell you, there was a lot of it.
Okay, so here's the two cops, and they're trying to figure this out. After they'd been back on the road for 30 miles or so, Pataki said, I keep asking myself what this is like. I mean, is this Clinton Lewinsky? Just a little fun with a cigar, but the girl talks too much? Is this Gary Hart? Who can remember him? Barely, says Colleen. Then he goes on, is this John Edwards? All Mr. Clean, but dumb as dirt when it comes to choosing a reliable mistress? Is this Mark Sanford, hopelessly in love and in need of the loved one? Is this Vitter or Spitzer paying for it? And happily, because the transaction is needed for the kick? Is this Ensign, who is just playing chess with people? I'll take this piece, you can have that. And then the other officer says, well, most of them were already in office, so they had a throne to defend. Our guy is seeking office. That's closer to Edwards. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just couldn't help noticing how many times politicians had hit the news with these seamy histories, and that they were people with needs and desires, and that just interested me as something to pursue. And there's a little joke early on, too, where the gubernatorial candidate is first seducing the young woman, and she says, I feel so stupid. I feel like Monica Lewinsky. And he sort of shrugs, and it's partly flirtatious. He says, well, you could make purses afterwards. So she's still hooked. I mean, she's hooked anyway. She knows it's dumb, but she's hooked on him.
And she's a simple girl from a simple Christian family, homeschooled, all this kind of stuff. But she has a lust for power, and it's that desire to be near powerful men and to have one that gets her killed.
Right. She's always liked powerful people, and she also begins to get a taste for goods, which she'd never thought about. She starts to notice fine clothing and things like that. And
She likes all that stuff.
Wonders
Yeah.
what does he eat at home, and when he has a meal catered, what do they eat? And so she becomes fascinated by that.
One of the other things I found interesting, I'm jumping all over because I'm just remembering things here, is two of the detectives, male, female, Pataki and Greer, they've fallen in love.
They have.
And Greer used to be in love with the commander,
Christie,
and he with her.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, do you think there's all that kind of intermingling? I bet there is.
I think there probably is.
The police. Oh, you could do like a Peyton Place with the cops, huh?
Yeah, you could.
A lot of. Mm-hmm. Ever since they let those women in.
That's what happens, yes.
Okay, so I remember back in the day when there was still arguments about whether women should be allowed to be on the force. And I remember seeing an interview with a cop's wife, and she was beside herself that her husband could end up spending his day driving around with another woman in this very tense and,
car.
Yeah, and like working together, eating together, being having to watch out for each other. Almost like it is almost like a marriage. These two partners,
very like it. Yes,
very like a marriage. So you can understand how a wife would be uncomfortable with, maybe her policeman husband paired with a woman on the force.
Right. And I was not aware of that conflict before women policemen came up. I remember Cagney and Lacey being a sort of surprise to women working together, and they had emotions and that kind of thing. But, I have to say that early television show NYPD Blue began to deal with this.
Yes,
all
true.
of the emotional things that happened and cops falling in love, and often wrongly with the wrong, with the wrong person who was just convenient at the time and not really a good match. So I didn't know I was being influenced by it. I just watched it at the time, but I think it did have an influence on me.
Well, think of, cops go through things together. They have dangerous jobs, and when you're going through danger and there's always your partner with you, I mean, it's not far from, this is my partner, to, in fact, this is my partner. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you, absolutely.
So cops have a very strange life, I mean, in many ways, and a complicated one emotionally.
And many of them end up divorced. Many of them do.
I'm not surprised.
It's the job demands them, and the marriage suffers. And in fact, right now in one of my classes, one kid said something about his father was a policeman, and in another class he said something about, thank God my parents got divorced because they would have driven each other crazy. And I thought, I've heard that story so many times.
So maybe the two cops married makes some sense because they both get it.
They get it, yeah.
But the book tells me that two married cops would never be allowed to work together. I mean, in the same car, right? And that's true?
It's true, yes, because
what's the feeling of that?
The need for objectivity. I don't know.
Do they think their reactions would be somehow maybe not like the police officer's reaction should be, but as too personal? Mm-hmm. Because you have these two in love, and they know that they've got they're hiding it from.
They either work together or live together.
Or live together. You can't do both. Mm-hmm. So you have to sort of report, we're involved, and then you lose the professional partnership.
Right.
So there's got to, you wonder how much of that.
And even I have that conflict. I like to have them working together because they're fun working together. I mean, for God's sake, they like food, and
they like eating well as opposed to crap.
He goes up and gets ravioli with butter sage dressing for their stakeout,
And where did he get that? You're always dropping
Legume. When it was in
Regent Square, and now it's on Craig Street, right? So what's fun also about reading Kathleen George's books is that you know the territory. So this particular one, the murder is in South Oakland. And, you know, when they're chasing, when they're trying to find this guy, you know I can see it. I'm watching this thing. I'm watching him go stop on Beacon to the one woman's house and then going around through this and that and down, and it's fun.
And Colleen is hanging out near Silky's and at the Cold Stone Creamery.
That's right.
She really wants to go to Baskin and Robbins because she likes it better. I know, it's very, very local. I love using parts of Pittsburgh that I know.
Well, that's so Regent Square pops up a lot, and the North Side pops up a lot in Oakland.
I live on the North Side.
You live on the North Side. Maybe you used to live in Regent Square? Or
Never did.
But
no.
you like Regent Square.
I lived in Squirrel Hill. Well, Regent Square keeps
you used to kill people in Regent Square a lot. I remember a book where you were knocking them off left and right there.
I did. And I also have killed people in Squirrel Hill.
And you've killed people in Squirrel Hill.
Yeah.
I live in Point Breeze. Why don't you kill somebody in Point Breeze?
Okay. That's like people asking, could you please use my name in the book? Just the name. They don't care what the character is. They just want...
They want to be in a book.
A name, yes.
Really? Uh-huh. How do you come up with names?
Oh, well, I have a couple of systems. The best ones are from the gut, like coming up with Rudder as the family name in Hideout. I really like that name because it's got a noble history, but it has a kind of ruddy sound to it, you know? And so I started looking up the name on the computer, and I found that it had a history and a coat of arms and all of that. And I made something of that. The woman in the family is like making fun of the husband who was named Rudder because he thought he was a tough, you know? And so she sort of hated him for that. And once I get an idea for a name, I pursue it, I look it up, I learn what the history might have been, and then I kind of make something for it. But when I need a first name, I go to this great site, which is popular names from the U.S. Census, and say, you pick a year, 1910, and it lists the most popular names.
Right.
And then you find, if you want a popular name because of the character would have a popular name, you choose one from the top of the list. And if you want an unusual one, you find one a little further down, like maybe Elmer or Willard or Millard was a very...
Willard?
was a big name at a certain point, and you choose that one. So that's kind of fun.
Stop and think of the two guys running for president are Willard and Barack.
I know.
Those are both. Those would be so low on your list. It's ridiculous.
I actually have an essay about What's in a Name that I haven't placed anywhere yet, but it's about Willard and Barack and the baggage that they carry with
those names.
And then about my own name, which is Kathleen Elizabeth George, and I once got a check meant for the writer Elizabeth George. And being a good girl from Johnstown, I sent it back.
Was Elizabeth George's royalty checks better than yours?
Well, it was small because it was only for a magazine piece in Norway or something like that. But I sent it back anyway, and she's got this obviously famous name, and mine is so close to hers that I often wondered if she ever got any of my royalty checks and didn't send them back.
Hey,
that's a thought, isn't it?
Yeah, because she might be getting so many she doesn't even really
I would
notice.
think so. She needs an accountant by now.
Jeez.
Surely.
So I noticed I got a hardback. It's already out in
No,
paper?
this is the advanced reading copy, which they mount this way, and it's got all the mistakes in it. That they haven't fixed yet.
There's no mistakes in mine.
No, I hope not.
I don't think so. I
hope not.
Although I was reading something the other day, a book, and bango. You see more and more of that.
Proofing isn't what it used to be.
Why is that? Certainly in the newspapers you see it all the time, but why in publishing?
In the Times, in the New York Times, lots of mistakes.
What is that?
Well,
they don't even have proofreaders, I think anymore.
that it's partly the economy, that they don't hire as many people with as much experience to proof as they used to. So
I think that's
it's
true.
a big problem.
Okay, so you wrote, even though this just came out in August, you said it was like 3 years ago you were writing it. So where are you in the next cycle? I always ask you this when you come in with a book. And what's the next one?
The next one is called Blood.
Oh, no! We're back to the blood! Oh,
One
no!
more title. I may change the title because I have always ended up changing titles. And I sometimes think of calling it His Blood because, you know, the Shakespearean term.
Well, I was going to say that references
blood.
Jesus.
Yes, also Shakespeare, uses blood, you know. And there's a big Shakespearean theme in it. So, I don't know. The title isn't quite fixed yet, but the novel is written. And takes place in Oakland a lot, Cathedral of Learning a lot.
You playing off of the stuff that happened with the constant evacuations of
No, that came after I had drafted the book. No, it wasn't that. It's another story of a kidnapping. It's very, very complex.
Now, you're in the academic world, which is rife with ego and jealousies. Why don't you ever do? Is it too close to home?
I think it's too close to home. I have never.
Come on! Don't you want to kill someone off?
I've often wanted to kill somebody.
Oh, I'd love it. Come on, murder people at Pitt. I mean, in higher up.
Just the other day, I walked out of my office and one of the graduate students said, "Could you write a murder on our floor on the 16th floor?" I don't know who that graduate student was angry with that day, but I said, "I'll consider it," you know. But it does seem a little close.
Murder at the Dirty O.
Yeah, Dirty O would be good.
Well, Dirty O has made it into your books, I'm sure.
It has.
And you obviously like to eat out because there's so many wonderful Pittsburgh restaurants. I get hungry often reading your book.
I've been told that before. That people get hungry. Yeah, they definitely eat a lot of bacon in my books. And characters are always eating bacon, and that's because my husband is making bacon in the morning, and I'm up there typing.
And that smell.
The smell just gets right into the book, you know.
Oh, wow.
But in this book, there's a little bit more upscale eating.
Yes.
Because the gubernatorial candidate had money.
Yes.
And so they, even the police ate better in this book. And there was a caterer. Bob Sandell is not mentioned by name, but his chocolates are.
Yes.
In Simple. And some of the restaurants that the characters would go to now in this book are more like a Café du Jour and Avenue B and Parc Bruges.
Yeah, it ain't Ritter's and, some,
right.
Dunkin' Donuts.
It used to be donuts and pierogies, and now
they're definitely moving up.
They're moving up a bit in the food.
I loved this book. I absolutely love it. And, Kathleen gets rave reviews. She's been nominated, is that what the word is, for the big the award, the Edgar, for her mystery writing. So, local girl makes good and makes good books. I really recommend this. It's fun, and it's the kind of book you want to pass on to people. Although Kathleen wants you to keep it and let whoever that person is buy another one.
That would be good.
That would be better.
That'd be very nice.
Stop enough of this sharing. Sharing's not good.
Sharing is fine. We need to do it, but book sales are the thing now. I mean, everybody's looking at sales to see if, bookstores will ever survive.
I know. This could be like an endangered species, and I so love it. Simple. Treat yourself. Truly. Kathleen, thank you.
Lynn, thank you.
Okay, so next time we're going to be talking about blood.
Or something.
Blood at
a title
Pitt.
that might be
blood.
Slightly different.
Sanguine.
Yes.
No, that's not a good title.
Well, I always have a different title before the one-word title. For a while, I was calling it "And So I'm Leaving," and then I started looking up those sentence titles, and a million of them had "I have to go now."
Well, like that that wonderful Groucho Marx bit.
There were so many like it.
Hello, I must be going.
Yeah.
I must be going. Actually, that's true. I must be going. We're out of time. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful, 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 wonderful weekend. And I don't know if I have a guest on Monday or not. If I do, it's a shock to me. What?
26.
Oh, no guests, just me and you.
Which is good.
That's good. That's fine. It's ample. Huh? What? Oh, and Jess wants me to remind you that you can see me this evening on WQED at 7:30 on that Gab show called 4802. Okay? Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.